Good morning, and welcome to the webinar this morning, where we're going to be talking about application software monitoring and utilization measurement and keeping track of that using CQ FlexMon. My name is Ray Soroy. I've been with Microdesk for about 4 years. I'm approaching my 4th anniversary. Before that, I was a customer of Microdesk. So I was a director of IT at a couple of different design firms over the years. And I've been enjoying my time helping people sell IT infrastructure and software for the IT departments. And so we're very excited to be teaming up with our friends and associates and colleagues at Symmetry. And today we have Jeremy joining us. Jeremy, give us a little introduction to yourself.
Thanks, Ray. Yeah, my name is Jeremy Vesey, an IT solutions consultant in Symmetry. I've worked for Symmetry now for 24 years. So I've been a hardware engineer, so going out on site, fixing computers and printers. And now an IT solution consultant, always been involved with helping customers deploy software and monitor licenses. So this is where CQ FlexMon really comes into its own. So this is where we're trying to help our customers be as optimized as possible with your subscriptions and get the numbers right in terms of the licenses. So I'll hand you back to Ray, who can start the webinar.
Thanks, Jeremy. Today's agenda, we're going to focus on the challenges, the problems, the pain points that we currently face in our world, and what CQ FlexMon can do for you. CQ FlexMon is new here in the States, but it has about 20 years of history in other parts of the world, like where Jeremy lives. So it's a mature product, it's a robust product, and I think you'll get to see exactly what I mean. We'll also introduce and let you know about a webinar coming up in about a month, probably the first week of February, on CQI, which is a deployment software that is also going to be soon made available here in the States. So there'll be more on that to follow. Today, we'll be focusing on the software utilization and monitoring with CQ FlexMon. And we'll actually have Jeremy do a live demo of that, so you'll get to see it under the hood and what some of the reporting looks like. Before we do that, we have a few poll questions where we get to know the audience a little bit better, and you guys get to learn more about each other as well. So let's see, what's our first poll question? Yeah, let us know if there's anything that you're using today. Go ahead and make your selections. Okay, so fairly good distribution of answers. With about 33% of everybody using a spreadsheet and some other tools, and then another third not using anything at all. So that's great. Let's see what we have for the next poll question. So you can tell, some of you can tell what you've got installed. Do you know how much it's getting utilized? Great, this is great. So 42% say that we do not have a way of knowing how much the software has been utilized. And there's also a quarter of the folks that say that they just don't know. Thank you for your answers. I think we have one or two more questions. Yeah, this is a big one. How often do you have complaints that there's no more licenses and that people can't get their work done? That's great. So about 50% say that it happens a few times a year, which is a good sign. So basically people are ensuring that they have enough licenses for their engineers, architects, and technicians to be able to do their work, which is a beautiful thing. That was about 50%. Thank you. Yeah. So if you've ever been audited by a software vendor, Autodesk or Microdesk or what have you, fill us in on that. I know that sometimes once you've been audited once, they usually like to come back every year and visit you again. So be interesting to see. Yeah, 56% are saying yes. Yes, 60% saying yes. We have been audited in the past, and the remaining group, 40% are the lucky ones that haven't yet been audited. It's a fun process for sure. Not. Okay, great. I think that was the last polling question, and it helps us a lot in presenting the solutions to know more about the audience that we're talking to. All right, great. As a director of IT, running out of licenses was one of the most upsetting things that happen in a business, because you basically have billable employees that have deadlines to meet and jobs to do, and when they go to their practice group leader and say, I can't work because I'm out of licenses, it's not usually a fun day for the IT department and the director of IT to solve that problem in a hurry. So that's one of the challenges that we solve. Fortunately, a lot of people here are already on top of that. The other interesting thing about the IT department is, and the IT director, is you're not only expected to provide licenses for everybody, but you're also expected to stay within budget. So those two things are diametrically opposed sometimes. So as you're planning next year's budget or for a renewal that's coming up, right sizing your investment for the organization's needs to make sure that you're not overspending is definitely one of the challenges. Compliance specifically is license compliance with any software and all software, but with Autodesk software, you'll find is something that we do particularly well with this software. And being able to identify right down to the end user level who's using it, who's using what softwares and how often is really, really important, as well as being able to aggregate that up to the different practice groups or studios that you've got in your organization. Oftentimes, if you do get the wonderful invite to do an audit, sometimes you can beg for the audit to happen perhaps in 2 months from now or 3 months from now, in which case you have some time to perhaps get your internal house in order, and this software, and with our help, of course, can help you prepare for such a thing. And then identifying Flex token candidates amongst your users for some of the folks who aren't using the software very much, so that you're able to take advantage of some of the newer license offerings that are available with Autodesk. It's important to note that, and as you will see when Jeremy does the demo, that it's really not just for Autodesk. Its genesis or its beginnings were specific to Autodesk, and it's obviously rolled with the times to go with named user accounts moving forward and things like that. So, but you will see that this is something, this is a software that can help you with not only your Autodesk software, I guess. Thank you. So again, today we'll be talking about license management with CQ FlexMon, and then next month we'll be introducing CQI, which is short for the CQ installer. Software deployment, managing your desktops, not as individual desktops, but rather as groups of desktops that each have a different combination of application softwares installed, such that you're managing a package for each different group and pushing that, the ability to push that package out very efficiently and reliably is one of the things that we can help you with. Regardless if you're an SCCI customer or a PDQ customer or Manage Engine customer or any of the softwares that do software deployments, CQI can make those packages faster and more reliable to roll out, even for the most complex softwares like we are accustomed to with Autodesk. More on that next month. So CQ FlexMon, this is the menu that you'll see in a minute with Jeremy. Again, it's going to help you ensure you have the right number of Autodesk licenses and your other licenses as well. Historically, network licenses and license managers like FlexNet or FlexLM have been commonly in place. Those are gradually going away, at least in Autodesk's world, to the named user accounts, but there's still a lot of vendors out there. Rhino users, for example, use Zoo. FlexNet is still in place in a lot of environments, so we have a CQ FlexMon server that will talk to the APIs in these different license managers to give you the information that you need. Single user level reporting is important. It's not uncommon to have somebody saying, I need Photoshop installed on my machine, and then you might suspect that they're actually not using it very often and things like that. So being able to get down to that granularity is something that Jeremy will be showing you in just a minute. And then obviously the analysis of the information. Once you're armed with the information, it helps you to do the reporting, share your reports with department heads and others, and do the analysis that you need for your decision making. And there you go. So there's a number of different helpful reports that you will get to see in just a minute with Jeremy, and he'll get you a little bit better understanding of how you get to that. And I've already talked a little bit about CQI. Again, more to follow. February 1st, 11:30 in the morning Eastern time is when we will have our first webinar on CQI. So I'd like to introduce or reintroduce Jeremy to everybody. Jeremy's been become a very valuable coworker and colleague for us here at Microdesk, as we have now joined forces with Symmetry. We're now one big company and have become, as we have joined forces, we've become the largest Autodesk distributor in the world, and that has given us the opportunity to share some of our software that we've developed with our friends at Symmetry. And obviously these two softwares are examples of softwares that we can now make available here in the United States, as they have many customers in Europe and around the world that have been benefiting from these softwares, these mature softwares, robust softwares. So I'd like to pass it back to Jeremy to give us an actual live demonstration of these capabilities.
Thanks, Ray. Okay, I'm gonna present and show my screen. So Ray, can you just confirm that's the right screen? We challenge people to work smarter.
Yes, we do.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through some of the configuration items that we use. And so CQ FlexMon sits on a server or a workstation, and it uses IIS and it uses an SQL database. That can be full SQL, or it can also be an SQL Express, a free version. So it doesn't have to be overly complicated or expensive to get us up and running. And what we do here is we actually got some configuration items within the configuration platform. And we've got some SMTP settings, so we can start to add these settings in for your mail server. So this gives us great flexibility in that we can send these reports. You don't have to go onto the server to have a look at the report client. Once we've helped you set these reports up, we can actually get these reports sent straight to your mailbox. Like Ray touched on, a lot of customers historically have used Autodesk software using a network license. These network licenses would have been using the FlexNet platform, and there's multiple other vendors that also use this platform. So we can see here that, like Ray touched on, the CQ FlexMon software will poll these license servers to get the activity, get that license data so that we can start to look at it. And what we would do is we just populate this list of any FlexLM servers that you have, and then we can talk to those servers to get the data. We can also see these other license managers. So we've got Zoo, for instance, which is Rhino software. Some other vendors will use CodeMeter, Sentinel, Hasp, or RMS. So some of these might be familiar to yourselves. You may have software that uses these licenses, in which case we can actually get CQ FlexMon to look at this license managers to get the information. We also look at Active Directory. So we don't write anything into Active Directory, but we read, because when we start to see your information, we'll pick up a username. Well, actually, we want to pick up the department information and other bits and pieces from Active Directory for that information to show on the reports. You might want to break these reports down into department or different companies, different Active Directory attributes. And we can also add Active Directory attributes. So we might add the email address in there, and I'll come to that a bit later with the Manage Autodesk module. So historically, like I mentioned, we would talk to license servers, okay? But then there's different software. So some software won't use a license manager. AutoCAD LT, the light version, never been a license manager product. So actually we want to be able to monitor that. So how can we do that? We can't communicate with a license manager. We have to monitor it from your desktops. So what we do is we give you a local service package, a tiny little MSI that you can push out using PDQ, SCCM. That sits on your endpoints and actually communicates with the CQ FlexMon server to actually receive the list of executable files that we want to monitor. This is where we can actually target not only the Autodesk software like Ray mentioned, but Adobe, SketchUp, Bluebeam. Any particular executable file on your desktops and your laptops, we can monitor. So it's really a lot of the paid subscription files. You know, if you're paying 50 licenses of a piece of software, we want to monitor it. Can we get that license subscription down to 40, to 30? You may be oversubscribed with your licenses, and that's what we want to help you with. So because we've also got that local service package on your endpoints, we can run a SAM scan. And this is where the Autodesk audits come in. Like you've mentioned, sometimes you've been audited, sometimes you haven't. Autodesk are very, very keen to audit customers to make sure that they're compliant with their license agreement. And if you're not compliant, they can issue a fine. So what we do is we run a scan. We then come back and tell you what software has been installed on that PC in terms of Autodesk software, and only Autodesk software for the SAM scan. We'll come back with the serial number and the license type, and I'll show you some of the reports. We'll touch on that. We've got our own job scheduler in here. So this is where we would schedule a job. We would schedule an Active Directory job maybe once a day to target any new users, so we receive their information in. we'll do an analyze of the application. Because we're monitoring executable files, we can then monitor and identify where those executable files have come from. acad.exe gets run for every single version, but if it runs from a specific directory, we can tell you it's run from that directory, so we know it's AutoCAD 2018 or 2019 or 2020. We can also add in new software, so if it's a new piece of software that you've got that we've not seen before, we can monitor the executable file and add that in. So what we do is we create an analyze job every 10 minutes. So as it's receiving the data in, it runs an analysis job every 10 minutes to process that data to make sure that when you look at the reports, you're getting your AutoCAD 2018 data or 2019 data coming onto the reports, and I'll show you that. This is also where we would schedule a report. So once we've helped you configure the software and got the reports working, we will then come into here and actually schedule these reports. So you don't have to do anything. All you need to do is wait for a message to come into your mailbox with a report attached to it. We can also output it to a server share. So you could actually output it to a server share where everyone goes on a Monday morning and they see the latest report for the Autodesk usage for the previous week or month. We could output it to an FTP site, or if you've got your SMTP settings, that's where it would come through to your mailbox, and then we schedule that particular report. So this is where we would also add in some more information. So we can see here, we've got about 4,500 pieces of software that we sort of analyze. And this software is a company that have asked us to monitor a program called SAFE. So what we do here is we actually add in this information, and we know it's coming from specific directories. So if we receive some information in that safe.exe is running from a SAFE 2016 directory, we actually put that on the report. So we could produce a report for the customer to say, this is your usage of SAFE 2016. So we can get some very, very granular detail. Once you've come into the configuration, and we help you set this configuration up, it's not just a piece of software we give you. We actually come onto the system and help you configure it and work with you to schedule reports, to create reports, and help you get the best out of CQ FlexMon. But once you've done the configuration, it's rare you need to come back in. It might be that you want to add in some more executables, and it might be that you want to create a report and schedule a new report. So I'll go on to, so that's the configuration done, and then we'll have a little look at some data. So this is the report client that Ray showed you, okay, with multiple different options. So license monitor, if we're monitoring information from a license server, so you've still got your Autodesk licenses on a FlexLM server, and all your users are checking a license out and checking a license back in once they've used it, we can see this information. So in this example database, we've got some subscription packs, some collection terms, so AEC collection packages. We can pick multiple different servers. If you had 5 license servers, we could display the reports for 1 license server or all 5. In this demo database is 1. And then we've got a time frame. We'll pick Q1 of 2021. So what we can see, we've got a lot of the information here. So we can see here that this license server has 93 licenses of collection pack, and it's all very nice and green. So a lot of you said about that on the poll of, you get asked about licenses. This is a good example. The license server is looking quite nice, quite efficient. We're getting some quite information here, quite a lot of information of peaking, nearly 86 licenses. And actually, we're starting to hit some peaks, 93 licenses. And 93 licenses, all licenses are in use. So what we can do is we can take that information into Excel. This information behind the scenes is actually an Excel engine. We've got our own Excel engine with CQ FlexMon, so you can copy and paste this information and produce your own charts. But we've got some templates to help you with this already. So what this will do is this will take the information in and show it in visual form. We can see here straight away that we've got a quite a lot of information, and we can start to see these peaks, 93 licenses being hit on these peaks. We can also see the weekends, so the big license drop in the licenses, but you can see this big area. This big area is a bit of a concern because there's a lot of licenses still in use on our Autodesk license server. Now, the reason that could be is it's quite literally people are leaving the licenses open. They're leaving that license open on their workstations. We've actually got a complete heat map here, so we can start to see that the utilization of these licenses of a FlexLM server. But here we can start to see, even on a weekend, we've got 24, sometimes up to 27% of the licenses still in use. And actually we break it down into an hourly, so we can see some really, really good data of when these licenses are used and how they're used, and the full capacity of that license server. Now it can be, going back to this graph, people are leaving their software open. On a FlexLM server, you have got options to reclaim those licenses back if people aren't using the software. So that's definitely one of the things that we would straight away recommend. If we looked at this graph, we'd ask you, have you got an options file on FlexLM to reclaim those licenses back? Could it be that people have borrowed licenses? With Autodesk licenses, your users can borrow a license. They check a license out from the FlexLM server, and they can check it out up to 6 months if you've not set an expiration. Key thing there is, if your users are struggling to get licenses, we've had users come into the office early to check a license out for 6 months. They've actually got a license then locked on their laptop or their desktop for 6 months. But what that does is that actually reduces the license count down to 92 in this instance. So they're okay, but your colleagues and their colleagues won't be okay. That user could go on holiday for 2 weeks and actually still have a license locked to their laptop, whereas actually people could be desperate for licenses hitting these peaks. So again, it's something very, very easy for us to spot straight away and help you actually get these licenses back as optimized as possible. So this is great for numbers. So this will show you, the license monitor will always show you the numbers, how many people, how many licenses you've got, and how they're utilized. But we want to start to dig into the information of who's using this. So this time we'll pick the actual yearly versions of the software and actually show the result of the same quarter of 2021. What this will do is actually give us and break down the information of who's using what product for how long. So this is, we can see that these users, we've got the username, we're talking to Active Directory, and we're picking up all of the department information. We now know that out of the AEC collection, they're now using these products. So as customers transition across from network licenses to user assigned licenses, it's a great insight of what's going on your FlexLM server. We know that these are the heavy users. They've used it 21 times across that period, 24 times, and they're getting some big hours. This user here, team manager, only ever using AutoCAD, only used it once, only used it 3 times. Very, very good candidate for flex tokens like Ray touched on. So straight away, just by looking at this information, you can get a good insight into who you think doesn't need a license, who you think does need a license. A team manager is unlikely to be producing data day in, day out. So it's great to hook into Active Directory to pick up the job titles, because if we just had Matthew Gardner, 1 and 3, you just think he's a low user, but actually a team manager probably is going to be a low user. Could be they need a viewer. So we could actually uninstall the software from their devices and actually remove the software, remove the license, give them DWG TrueView and actually use it. But we'd need a conversation. It's these ones that we want a conversation with these ones. Again, we've got some we'll generate a report for this. So you can start to see the information straight away, but actually it's good to see it in graphical form and a bit more information. So what we do, we'll take this into Excel again and we can start to dig into the data. So we can start to see that we've got users using very, very old software still, so 2018, and even in some situations, 2017. So very, very easy information. Ray touched on it, Autodesk compliance audits. It's great to see what user is using what software for how long. So we can start to target these users to get them up to the latest version of the software. What we can see here also is we've got unique users. So we've got unique users across this server, 225. So 225 of your users have touched this license server to actually get a license. Now, in an Autodesk world, when you start to transition from network licenses to user assigned, you start to go across and actually get a 2-for-1 offer at the moment. 93 licenses times 2 is 186. It may not be able to service, if you transitioned your licenses, you may not be able to see those licenses and actually fulfill all your users with those licenses. So very, very easy way of showing this as software. So what we can do also now, that's from a license manager perspective. So the license monitor will pick up all of your numbers of licenses from your FlexLM server. License usage will show us who's using what product for how long. But Ray touched on it, it's not just Autodesk. So we can start to look at the application usage module. The application usage module is where you've pushed out your local service package to all of your desktops and your laptops. And we want to monitor the likes of Adobe, for instance. So what we can do here is this database has got a lot of information. You can see this customer has actually been monitoring Bluebeam, Enscape, lots of different software. Might be using Microsoft. They could be actually monitoring Project or Visio. Additional subscriptions to your Office 365 subscriptions and paid software. All of this software may well be paid. If this paid for software, we want to monitor it. If people are actually using the software, great. They need a license and they can continue. If you're buying licenses and you don't need to use it because people aren't using the software, they're the ones that we need to target. So what we can do is we'll do the same piece of information and we can start to see the information we've got for Adobe. So we can start to see that these different people are using the software and they're actually using it quite a lot in some instances, but very, very infrequently. 2020 only used it once in a quarter. So this is where we can start to produce some more reports. So what we can do is, this is the report I showed you previously. It will just go through all of the different unique users. But sometimes it's actually worth having a look to see who isn't using the software. So it's great to see who is using the software for how long. But what we do in this report is actually flip that data on its head and actually show you the infrequent users, because these are the users that we might want to target to have a chat with, have a conversation, say, what are you using this software for? So what we'll see in this instance is we've seen them touch a piece of software. They've opened up Adobe Photoshop. What we can start to see here is we've got a user map. So we've got inactivity. So this user has used it 6 times, but they've actually got 46 inactivity days across that period of time. So very, very easy way of seeing the very low frequent users. These are the users that probably use Adobe Photoshop, InDesign and Illustrator a lot. It could be their daily job that they need to do that. We can also see this information in a heat map. These are the users that we might want to have a conversation with. It could be they're using Pro, Adobe Pro, but they might only need the Reader, so a free version. We can start to reclaim those license costs back and actually reduce your subscription costs. We can also take this information in to have a look at the unique versions. So again, what we can start to see is who's using the older software. Now, from an Autodesk perspective, you will see a lot of the Autodesk give you, if you're on the latest subscription for Autodesk, you can use the Autodesk 2023 suite and you can use 5 versions back. So it will take you down to 2018. Now, it can be that you're using older software, in which case Autodesk will then want to potentially fine you if they spot AutoCAD 2017 or 16 installed on the PCs. But it's great to start to see that people are still using Photoshop 2017. They're still using Photoshop 2018. So we need to get them onto the latest subscription. If your subscription of Adobe or any other software that we want to monitor only allows you to use the latest version, we can target these users. We can find these users, find the PCs, and actually get the software uninstalled and get the new software installed. So very, very easy way of seeing who's using what software for how long. Another report we can do is user analyze. We can do another one. This one takes the information into a pivot table, and we can start to target the software and start to reduce that software. So it will show us the Adobe software in this instance. We can pick the different software and actually start to reduce what we're seeing on the particular chart. So it's almost like a live report that we can actually start to target, so we can start to pick the actual individual versions. You can pick an individual version in the report, but it's a lot easier to pick multiple different versions of software, come into here and have a look at all of the data, and we can actually start to see across the Adobe suite, these are the heavy users, these are the heavy users, these are the very, very infrequent users. So that's what we can start to produce on that data. So touching on that, in terms of your users, your numbers of Adobe software and Autodesk software, this is going to give you great statistics of unique users of this software. So if you're buying 50 licenses of Adobe Photoshop, but you're only ever seeing the data, we can start to really dig into those numbers and actually have a little look to see whether your subscriptions are actually a bit more, if we can reduce those subscriptions. We'll now have a little look at the anything you want to add, Ray?
Yeah, I was just going to ask. One of our participants has asked, can we add other third-party software to the exe file list?
We can indeed. Yeah, yeah. So what we do there is we actually target. We'll actually help you with this. So that instance where I showed you Safe, that was a piece of software that we've never seen before. So if you've got a new piece of software that we've not seen in our database, and it happens, there's a lot of software out there, we would just ask you and help you find the executable file where it is, the name of it, and actually if you're running the same executable with different versions, so SketchUp is a good example. SketchUp is always using sketchup.exe. We will actually find the directory. It might be running from a SketchUp 2016 or a 2017 directory. We actually populate that into the analyzed database. So when it receives sketchup.exe, it works out where that file has come from, and we can actually analyze it. So when we produce a report, we can tell you that sketchup.exe has run, and actually 4 users are using 2016, 5 users using 2017, or 6 users using 2018. So yeah, we can always add in any executable file that you want to monitor, and we'll help you go through that and customize the database to do that.
Jeremy, is there anything in the software that would prevent users from using any application software? Does the agent stop use, for example, or does that go beyond the scope of this software?
It goes beyond the scope at the moment.
Yep.
I mean, we are literally monitoring software, so we're not stopping anyone at the moment, but there's nothing to say that that couldn't be included. So one of the good things with this being our own software, we have recommendations, and a lot of these license managers that we've monitored is where customers have asked us, can we monitor that license server? And we haven't been able to, but we've worked with the vendor, we've worked with the customer and added it in. So because we've got an agent on the device, there's nothing stopping us from actually developing something with the customers. If they've come up with a great idea of what they want to do, we can certainly help them do that. So at the moment, it doesn't do that, but there's nothing stopping us from actually adding in any development to it. It's our own software.
Excellent, excellent. So there's nothing here that would stop users from doing anything, really. It's purely it's information collection tool.
Information
and I just
gathering.
I wanted to let our participants know that we are watching the question area for this webinar. So if you do have questions as we progress here and come up to the Q&A, please do fill out any of the questions that you do have, and we'll handle them either as we go or at the end.
That's great. Thanks, Ray. I'll touch on the SAM module. So this is the SAM module. So like I mentioned, a lot of our customers might have had an Autodesk audit. Some of our customers might not have, but they may have an Autodesk audit. So what we do, we can actually run this. So we've got the local service package pushed out to all of your desktops and your laptops. We run a scan on the device, and actually what we do is then get this information to come back. So this is the information that we can start to see. So it's a great deal of information on Autodesk, and this module is specifically and only written for Autodesk software because we're a big, massive Autodesk vendor, okay? So what we do is we can see that on this workstation, we've got the Autodesk software, we've got it installed and what versions. We've added in your contract numbers. So the customer has got these contract numbers added in, and actually what we do there is we can start to see that that is actually a valid serial number. It's a customer asset. We also see it's a network license version. We can then also see when it was installed, where it was installed from, where it's installed to, and the license server it's actually pointing to. So very, very handy information also when you're transitioning from network licenses to user assigned. We can identify the users and the software on devices that is actually on a network license. We can then help you actually migrate this. A lot of customers actually go through the pain of uninstalling Autodesk software to reinstall it with a new license type. Now, in some of the later versions, you can go into the software and switch the license sign-in to a sign-in method from a network method. So we can identify these devices, and we've got tools to help you do that as well. But more importantly, this is specifically to help customers with an audit. What we can do is if we put in your old expired contracts, we can actually define and actually look at this. So this is the information that Autodesk When Autodesk do an audit, they actually run a scan on your devices also, and they produce very, very similar information to what we do. So we will detect the old software that's been installed. We can see that this PC has a very, very old software installed. Now, Autodesk aren't interested in if you're using this software. The mere fact that it's installed on the workstation when you now don't own this license on an expired contract, they may well want to fine you from 2015, another year, 2016, 17, 18, 19, all the way up to 2023. So there's been some very, very big fines dished out via Autodesk because of this reason. Now, some of our customers that have been using CQ FlexMon have purchased this module and actually run a compliancy scan and actually then gone through the Autodesk audit and been 100% compliant. So some customers are very, very good at knowing what software is installed on what device. But if you've lost control of that, sometimes it's very easy for an older device in the server room just to get re-put out on a desk. It's not been wiped. It's not had Windows reinstalled on it. So it's got old software. The user of that PC may be a receptionist and they may only use Office software. But actually lurking on that PC is AutoCAD 2015 from a very, very old contract. Autodesk scan that PC and they will actually want to issue a fine. So it's just really us trying to help yourselves, any other customer, to make you as compliant as possible and just to help you with any issues you've got in terms of the Autodesk compliance. So really, touching back, license monitor is those FlexLM servers or Zoo, Sentinel, HASP. To get the numbers, license usage is really to go over who's using what product for how long. Application usage is where you've got no license managers at all. So we're not targeting any license managers. We're running that local service package on your device and actually picking up the all of the statistics from the executable files. And the SAM module is where we do is specifically and only Autodesk compliance to help you and make sure that you're as compliant as you possibly can be. So the next module that's come out, and it's so new I haven't got it on my demo database, is the Manage Autodesk module. Now the Manage Autodesk module is a new module for CQ FlexMon, and it just helps us gain understanding of your company's utilization of software of named users. So this is where you've got the single user subscriptions in your portal and you assign them to your users. They sign into the software to use it. So what we do here is actually we find out this information. So we can hook into the Autodesk portal. Now what we do is we automatically open up the Autodesk portal behind the scenes in CQ FlexMon. We use an admin account, so a secondary admin account to your Autodesk portal. It looks inside and it produces and pulls down all of the information of what license has been assigned to your users in the Autodesk portal. So we can see here, this is a common, what you will see. You will see that this user has an AEC license assigned. This user has a Flex token assigned. Now what we do here is, if they've got a Flex token model assigned, we know that they may have opened up AutoCAD, for instance, twice. AutoCAD will take 7 tokens. Every time you open up a piece of software that you've got a license assigned for, if you're on the Flex token model, so you buy a pot of tokens, every time someone opens up a piece of AutoCAD software and has it running for more than 5 minutes, it will actually consume a certain amount of tokens. So with AutoCAD, for instance, 7 tokens. And you can use and open up that software for as many times as you want in a 24-hour period. It will consume 7 tokens. So we can see this user across this interval has used AutoCAD. We could find out, but we're basing this off this Flex token usage, 2 times 14 tokens. What we do here is this is an AEC collection license. Now that doesn't consume any tokens because that is a license that is assigned to you. Now we know that they've opened it 12 times. That could be AutoCAD, it could be Revit. And what we do is we've got token consumption numbers. So we know that AutoCAD is 7, Revit is 10 tokens from memory. So what we do is we total it up. They've not consumed 96 tokens, but what it does is it gives us good insight into whether we could flip this user from an AEC license to a Flex model. And likewise, these are quite high consumptions of Flex tokens. So what we want to do is notify you on this to say, you've got a license assigned that's Flex tokens for this user. We think based on their current usage, we think you should actually use this license. So it could be that we would find a very, very low frequent user of AEC, flip them to Flex and actually flip it the other way, and we'll help you do that. So what this report shows us is actually in Active Directory, some customers, when a user has ended employment, they will actually place an Active Directory attribute to say end of employment. We will pick this up in Active Directory and show you this on the report. So what this is highlighting is these users have ended employment, but actually within your Autodesk portal, you've got 2 licenses assigned here and Flex tokens. They've not used it. These are people who have used it across this period of time, but actually they're end of employment. We want to deassign these licenses. We don't want you to buy new AEC licenses or more Flex tokens because you've actually got people that have ended employment and actually they're not using the software. We'll show you this in one of our Excel templates also. This period, I touched on it. If you open up a piece of Autodesk software and you've got a Flex token license assigned, you can open that software and close it within 5 minutes and it will not consume tokens. So some people will accidentally open up AutoCAD when they want Revit. So what we do is we highlight that and we go on that. We can see this user has opened up AutoCAD 2021, 133, closed it down at 135. So actually it doesn't flag it as a usage, and we don't mark that down as token consumption to give you that number. So we flag that as well. This is quite a common situation as well in the Autodesk portal, where people may well have an AEC license assigned as well as Flex tokens, because it's easy to do. You've got a user and you've got AEC licenses and you've got Flex tokens. So very easy to do that, but we'll just highlight the duplicates in that software. This is a great piece of information that we can see here. So this, what it's telling us here, is they've got Flex tokens assigned, these users, and they're consuming an awful lot of tokens. These are heavy, heavy users of Autodesk software, AutoCAD, Revit, any piece of software. We could dig deeper to find exactly what applications they've opened. But if this user has consumed, this is from April to September, they've consumed 1,113 tokens themselves. That's not good. That could really, really eat through your tokens. Now, if you didn't have some sort of way of monitoring that software and utilizing, CQ FlexMon to do that, you may not know that user has done it. It's very easy for you to place a user on a Flex token model based on their consumption, but if their job role changes and they start to go onto a new project and they're using Revit day in, day out, they need to be taken off a Flex model and actually put onto an AEC collection license. And we will highlight that. We'll show you that this sum usage is actually red, and we'll flag that to you to say, we think you need to move this user to an AEC collection license. And on the flip side of that, we will also show you the very, very low frequent users of AEC licenses, so you can actually start to swap these about. If you didn't have the ability in CQ FlexMon to do that, you would probably be none the wiser until actually your Flex tokens have been completely consumed. This is another report we'll show. So this is showing that we've got AEC licenses assigned to these users, but actually across this period of time, they've never used it. Again, if you didn't have any way of monitoring the utilization of your licenses, you could look inside the Autodesk portal. You would have 257 licenses, and you would turn around and say, I've got 257 licenses actually assigned to my users. You have 5 new starters. You could easily go out and buy 5 more licenses of AEC. We would recommend you didn't, because obviously you don't need to do that. You've got about 14 licenses here that you can actually assign. So if you have 5 new starters, you would immediately take these licenses away from these users, give them to the 5 new starters. If these people then needed to use the software, they can't be frequent users, so you may well allocate them to the Flex tokens because they're very, very infrequent users. So it's a very easy way of us to show us. So that's the end of the demo. And have we got any more questions, Ray?
We don't have any new questions, but I have a couple for you. It's very helpful to see the Autodesk specific things that are available, but it's clear that we obviously can be monitoring other software tools as well, with perhaps just a look, not the full functionality of the Autodesk, but all the utilization reports that you showed us will work with the Application Monitor EXE softwares, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
And
any executable file we can obviously monitor, and
yeah,
any of the reports we can produce on any of those executables. So different versions, there's definitely some reporting software out there that does this, but they will tell you that ACAD.exe has been run for 4 hours, but actually will tell you AutoCAD 2018 or AutoCAD 2020 has been installed.
Yeah,
okay? We analyze that data exactly.
How does this software get installed in my environment? Do I have to, how about my users who are at home running this agent? How does that report up? In other words, how do I put the server, the FlexMon server, in on premises, or can I put it in my cloud in Azure, or what are my options there?
So yes, at the moment it's an on-premise solution. So a lot of our customers will spin up a new virtual machine or a virtual server to actually host CQ FlexMon. Like I mentioned, it needs IIS.NET 4.8 and an SQL database. Some customers will already have a full SQL server, so we will just create the database on that server. Now, moving forwards, in the UK and Nordics, we have actually got a cloud hosted solution. And I think you're looking at, obviously, we're going to create a cloud hosted solution for US customers also. So what that would do is that would give you the ability to not necessarily need it on-prem. Okay, so what we would do is we would give you the local service package, but instead of the data being sent to your on-premise CQ FlexMon server, it would be hosted on the internet. So as long as those devices have got an internet connection, it will send the data directly. So, and there's nothing stopping you from hosting it in your own cloud. So, a lot of your customers may well have on-premise domain controller, but they may well have an Azure file server, an Azure SQL server. So you can host it in the cloud. As long as we've got access to that server to help you install it, we can obviously install that, no problems at all.
Yeah, so if we have an Azure subnet where we already are migrating a lot of our server resources from the headquarters on-prem to our Azure subnet with our servers, then this can reside up there just fine, is what I'm hearing.
Exactly, yeah. So, at the moment, we're not, we haven't got that, but that will certainly be coming along. So yeah, if you've got your own hosted Azure presence with a VPN from your on-site to your Azure server, so it's just an extension of your network into Azure, we can certainly utilize that and add that in. So no problem at all.
Tell us about security then. As we have users both in the office and working remotely, construction sites and from home. What happens if they get temporarily, their agent on their desktop gets temporarily disconnected? Number one, and number two, tell us about the security of the communications that are happening between that agent and our servers.
So it's all on HTTPS, so it's all obviously encrypted traffic. And if you had a device, so good example, customers will have a laptop, they will have the agent installed, it will look at the CQ FlexMon to list the .exe files that it wants to monitor. Once it's got that list, if that laptop was taken away to a building site for 2 weeks with no internet access, we would still be monitoring that software. It would cache that software, all of the information locally, and then as soon as that user was to connect to the VPN or come back into the office, it would then push that information into the CQ FlexMon server. Now, there's also nothing stopping you from opening up a port on your firewall. You could open up a 443 port directly to the CQ FlexMon server, or any port. It's very easy for us to configure CQ FlexMon not just to use HTTPS. We could use HTTPS with a different port. So instead of 443, we could have it as 444. What that indicates then, as long as your customers have these devices on the internet, you can send the information directly into your database. So people don't need a VPN, because Some customers may have their data on SharePoint now. They don't need to VPN into the organization anymore. If that's the case, you can open up those ports, so the information will get straight into your environment.
Excellent. So flexibility and security are both part of this solution today. We're approaching the top of the hour. I do not see any other questions.
I'm actually answering some on the poll to track licenses for online applications. Okay, so I'm just going to answer that one. Yeah, so someone's asking just about the BIM 360. So at the moment, we monitor it from an executable perspective. So at the moment, we can't monitor BIM 360, but what we're actually looking to do is actually monitor browser activity. So later on down the line, the local service package will be enhanced to open up and actually say, this user has had Google Chrome open for 4 hours. They've had these actual tabs open, and these tabs have been BIM 360, and actually that tab has been active for a certain amount of time. So that is definitely something we're focusing on, and actually, working on with the local service package with our developers. We're also looking at add-ins. So we're also looking at add-ins. So, if you've got multiple different plugins for Revit, we want to try and monitor the DLL files. So again, currently just executable files, but there's definitely things coming. And like I said before, it's our own software. If there's something you need to do, you can help us develop it. We want to work together with yourselves to get this software as good and as helpful as possible. What was the next one? If we use Autodesk but have migrated out of FlexLM to named users, would there be any advantage to the Autodesk module? Or is that really only for the older FlexMon? No. So the good question. If you've migrated out from FlexLM to named users, you would use the application usage module to pick up the utilization of your software. So once you've transitioned, if you've got 50 named user licenses in your portal, you can monitor those licenses. So we monitor it from an executable perspective. So then the next renewal comes up, we would use the CQ FlexMon data to see whether we could say, actually, out of your 50 licenses, only 40 people, we've seen 40 people use. So you could potentially then next year reduce your Autodesk subscription down to 40 licenses from 50. So that's really what we want to do. Now, if you then go, okay, that's great, let's use this and use the statistics, we could actually say, actually, we think you could reduce your license count from 50 down to 40, but actually buy a pot of 500 Flex tokens, assign the very, very infrequent users that we've seen, and actually put them to Flex tokens. Once they've got those Flex tokens, we can continue monitoring to then work out, actually, that's really, really good. And next year, we could then say, actually, we could reduce it further to 35, but buy slightly more Flex tokens, 1,000 pot of Flex tokens. However it works, we can certainly help you with that. So yeah, it's not just if you've migrated, we can help you. Once you've migrated, use the application usage module and potentially the manage Autodesk module to really get your optimization, the subscription really optimized. Next one was, does this module work for EBA customers? So yeah, there's no reason why. There's no reason why we can't hook into any particular FlexLM server. If it's ETR customers, EBA customers, it will monitor a FlexLM server, so we can certainly help do that. We've actually, some of our customers, larger customers of CQ FlexMon, they're on EBAs and ETRs, and customers still want to use CQ FlexMon because the data they're getting from CQ FlexMon is a lot more superior to the data that Autodesk produce. Some of the software that they can produce is, there used to be a program called FlexEra, which was really, really expensive. Used to monitor the FlexLM licenses, but very, very expensive. So, CQ FlexMon gives us the flexibility to monitor that Autodesk software, but also just monitor those executables. So we open ourselves up to any executable. Yes, we've historically been focused on Autodesk because we're an Autodesk dealer, but then it opens it up to multiple different pieces of software. And we've got Sean mentioning I would love the browser monitoring. Yeah, that would cover SaaS apps, exactly, Sean. So we've really, listened to our customers. A lot of our customers are going to BIM 360, and it's obviously a lot of the SaaS applications, they're becoming online cloud applications. So as soon as that comes out, we'll be pushing that. And this is the type of stuff that it's great questions to have from you guys as well, because it helps us with the development team to come back to say, look, we've been on webinars and people are really pushing the SaaS applications and the browser. So it's great that you've had some of these questions come through.
Of course, the challenge there, Jeremy, would be, different end users in our environments oftentimes like to have their choice of which browser to use, be it Firefox or Microsoft or Google, Chrome or what have you. So having to be able to dive into the browser activity obviously might mean having to actually write the browser software monitoring for a number of different ones.
I think we would. I think we would have to look at we would have to have a limit, to say, we've noticed Chrome open, we've noticed Edge open, we've noticed IE open, Opera, Firefox. So they're the most common browsers. It could be that we specifically say we're going to monitor Edge, IE, Firefox, and those particular browsers. So if you use those browsers, we can start to look at the tabs, start to look at the activity and the focus on the tabs. So it's, and also digging deeper into the Autodesk software. We even want to start to give you that this user has opened up AutoCAD for 4 hours, but actually it's been active for 2 hours. If we can find the information, it's all part of the development of the local service package. We want to be able to tell you that this user has had acad.exe open. They're active browser. So it'd be great to say they've had it open for 4 hours, but actually they've been constant activity on that particular executable file for 2 hours, because people could open up software and go out, and we're going to monitor the start time and the end time. We want to be able to focus more on actually giving you a bit more granular information as possible.
Excellent. Jeremy, thank you very much. You did a wonderful job as usual, and I know that I recognize the names of some of these folks, like Sean, who we just did a demo here stateside with. So, and your slides and your information go for the new Autodesk module is helpful. Because I don't have that stuff yet, so we'll have to beg.
We'll go over that with you, Ray, and get you set up for that and go over so Beautiful. You can introduce it to even more customers, because once they've transitioned, it's really, really helpful for them to keep using monitoring and monitor the usage, especially if they've gone to Flex tokens, or even if they haven't gone to Flex tokens, it's to monitor the usage to see whether it's actually cheaper for them to go. If you've got users in your environment that are using Autodesk software less than 7 or 8 times a month, it's actually cheaper for them to go to a Flex model. So it's all about getting your licenses as optimized as possible and the subscriptions for the right. We don't want you spending thousands and thousands of dollars on software when actually these users aren't using the software. We don't want to stop people from using software, but we want to make sure your licenses are as optimized as possible.
We can, in our typical 1 hour demos, just for the participants that are still hanging in there, we can usually give you a very good cost estimate, interactively working out the options that you need and that you want for the number of users and vendors that you want to monitor. So after a 1 hour demo, we can give you a real good idea of what your cost is going to be for CQ FlexMon. And then, of course, next month on February 1st, we'll have another webinar on the CQ installer, which obviously takes it the next level for the IT department to be able to manage desktops instead of as individual desktops, but enhances their ability to manage them as groups of software packages that go out to all the users. So we will welcome everybody back to that webinar when the time comes. Thanks again, Jeremy. Get in touch with your Microdesk rep here in the U.S. and you can book for a demonstration and a quote, and we can get you hooked up. Or if you need other assistance with your licensing and planning of your change from license manager, FlexLM to named users, what have you. Those are things that Microdesk can help you with. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ray.